You've spent decades mastering your career and building a very healthy nest egg. But have you noticed that the moment you try to talk to your partner about the R word, the atmosphere in the room gets a little pressurized? It turns out the secret to a smooth launch isn't one big meeting. It's 5 small ones. Are you and your partner ready?
3, 2, 1, 0, 0, and liftoff. Liftoff. America's return to space as Discovery clears the tower.
Welcome back to Retirement Isn't Rocket Science. I'm your host, Dr. Chris Mullis. I spent my first career as an astrophysicist mapping the cosmos with NASA's space telescopes. Now, as a certified financial planner with 21 years of experience, I help you navigate the universe of retirement. Our mission is clear. Lower your taxes, strengthen your portfolio, and give you the confidence and the capacity to spend more. Buckle up. We're going to master your money and explore the mysteries of the universe along the way. In today's show, are you and your spouse imagining 2 completely different retirements? You need to talk about it. And when your kids start filing their own tax returns, navigating this 2-return orbit without losing your tax altitude becomes important. And finally, the 2-galaxy tango of ARP4, a reminder that in the cosmos and in your retirement portfolio, what you see at first glance isn't always the whole story.
Space Shuttle Discovery still on its way to orbit after a successful ascent up through main engine cutoff.
Welcome to the Retirement Briefing Room. This is where we huddle up to take a close look at important aspects of your financial life, spotlight pathways of success, and think about how to integrate these into your retirement mission plan. Today, we're diving into an insightful piece titled The 5 Conversations Every Couple Needs Before Retirement, written by Dan Haylett. Dan is a UK-based planner who specializes in the human side of financial planning, focusing on how emotions and behaviors interact with our bank accounts, essentially helping folks navigate the transition from full-time worker to full-time liver. Now, if you're like most of our listeners, you've probably tried to have the talk about life after work. And if we're being honest, it probably didn't go as smoothly as a SpaceX landing. Maybe one of you wants to deep dive into the spreadsheets while your partner suddenly finds the urgent need to reorganize the garage and disappear. Here's the rocket science truth. The reason these talks are hard isn't actually the money. It's because retirement means something completely different to each of you. You aren't just discussing a portfolio. You're navigating a collision of identity, purpose, and control. As Dan puts it, the money is just the scoreboard. It's not the game itself. The biggest mistake is trying to have one massive retirement summit. It's just way too much fuel for one engine, and it leads to a shutdown or arguments. Instead, Dan advocates that we need 5 separate 30-minute mission checks that build upon each other. So let's go through these one at a time. Conversation 1 is the Ordinary Tuesday. This isn't about money. It's about life. Separately, describe your ideal Ordinary Tuesday in retirement. That means each of you, by yourself, sit down and think about what that Ordinary Tuesday looks like. It's not a vacation day. It's just a regular day. One of you might imagine a packed social calendar with exercise classes and volunteering, while the other envisions a quiet day in the garden. If you don't surface these expectations now with your partner, you'll spend the next 20 years stepping on each other's toes. Conversation number 2 is about naming the fears. This is the hardest one. You have to name your emotional fears, not just the logical ones. Is it losing your sense of purpose? Is it becoming a burden on someone? For example, your partner or your kids. When one partner seems stingy, they might actually be terrified of the financial insecurity that they felt as a child. When the other seems reckless, they might be terrified of wasting the healthy years of retirement. Once you name the fear, the money arguments finally start to make sense. Conversation number 3 is the scoreboard or the facts. Now we look at the numbers. No emotion allowed. Lay out the investment accounts, Social Security benefits, maybe a pension. Surprisingly, many couples who have been together for 40 years still don't have a shared, clear picture of the mission control data. This creates a power imbalance where one person feels burdened by the knowledge and the other feels anxious because they're in the dark. We need a level playing field to make smart tax, income, and investment decisions. To help you think through some of these technical aspects, I've created a resource entitled, What Issues Should I Consider Before I Retire? This checklist covers 32 of the most important planning issues to identify and consider when you're on the verge of retirement. It covers cash flow issues, health insurance issues, asset and debt issues, tax planning issues, long-term planning issues, and much more. You'll find this free resource in our weekly newsletter called The Launch. If you haven't already signed up, head over to retirementisn'trocketscience.com to subscribe. Now we're ready for conversation number 4, the non-negotiables. Everyone has financial anchors that make them feel safe or free. For you, it might be a specific travel budget. For your spouse, it might be keeping $20,000 of cash as a safety net at all times. This is also where you might discuss gifting versus inheritance, meaning giving with warm hands versus cold hands. If you want to help the kids with a house deposit, that's a non-negotiable conversation that needs to happen before you write the check and before you decide what's your sustainable income in retirement. And finally, conversation number 5, the system setup. Only now do you do the actual financial planning. You look at your retirement income guardrails, your tax-efficient drawdown strategy, and your spending smile. That's the reality that you'll likely spend more in early retirement and less as you age. But here's the pro tip for couples. Build in personal spending. You both need an amount each month that is entirely yours. No questions asked. Whether it's a round of golf or a new book, it removes the friction of daily spending and respects your autonomy as individuals. So those are the 5 small conversations that build upon each other to get you and your partner retirement ready. Let's talk about 2 final aspects before we conclude. Number 1, renegotiating your roles. Retirement is a controlled explosion of the roles you've held for decades. The breadwinner isn't earning. The home manager suddenly has a coworker in the kitchen all day. Successful couples treat retirement as a fresh start, deliberately designing new roles for who handles the bills, who organizes the social life, and how much space each person needs. Last but not least, what if your partner simply won't engage? If your spouse is avoiding these talks, it's usually anxiety, not stubbornness. Make it small. Ask for just 10 minutes to look at your income forecast. Lead with curiosity, not criticism, and exercise empathy. Try to understand through your partner's view so that you can meet them where they are. You aren't trying to fix everything in one afternoon. You're building a habit of communications and partnership. Retirement planning isn't just about making sure your money lasts as long as you do. It's about making sure your relationship does too. The money is just the fuel, but your shared vision is the navigation system. Start small, be patient, and remember, you've spent a lifetime building this mission together. It's worth the conversations to make sure your retirement launch is perfect. You'll find a link to Dan's article in the show notes and in our weekly newsletter. Now, let's head over to Mission Control to answer your financial questions and get you retirement ready.
Discovery Houston, 20 seconds to LOS TDRS.
Roger, nice to be in orbit.
Welcome to Ask Mission Control. When our kids are little, we worry about them coloring on the walls. When they're young adults, we worry about them coloring outside the lines of the tax code and how that might pull our own financial flight plan off course. This week's question is our favorite type of question, an audio question.
Hi, this is Cliff calling from Charlotte. Had a question in reference to dependents that have made enough money to have to do their own tax this year. How will that affect our taxes? And should we have them do our dependents do their taxes first, or would it matter? Thank you.
Cliff, thanks so much for reaching out. Let me summarize your questions. Your young adult children are dependents and listed as such on your tax return, but they're making enough money now that you believe they need to file their own tax returns. You're asking, how does this filing affect your own tax return as the parent? And do you need to have your kids file their returns first, or does the order matter? And let me add a third upstream question. At what income level do they need or should they start filing their own tax returns? This is the classic mission control moment. You've spent decades navigating your own financial orbit. Now your children are starting to fire up their own engines. That's an exciting milestone, but from a tax perspective, it can feel like you're trying to dock multiple spacecraft in the dark. Let's break this down into 3 stages. Stage 1, the ignition point. At what income level do your adult kids need to start filing? Think of the IRS like atmospheric pressure. At a certain altitude, you simply have to acknowledge it. There are 2 distinct triggers for needing to file. Number 1, earned income. Think of that like W-2 wages. If your child made more than the standard deduction, which for 2025 is roughly $15,000, then they must file their own return. The second trigger is unearned income. If they have investments in their name that threw off more than $1,300 in interest and dividends, that also triggers the filing requirement. So again, there are 2 distinct reasons that could trigger to cause your child to need to file their own tax return. But it's very important to point out, even if they made less than the standard deduction, so less than approximately $15,000 in 2025, they should probably file anyway. Why is that? If their employers withheld any taxes, the only way to get that fuel back into their tanks is by filing a return to get a refund. It's also a great way to start their financial orbits early by opening Roth IRAs. If they have earned income, they can contribute to a Roth, setting the stage for decades of tax-free growth. Now we move on to stage 2, structural integrity. How does this affect your return as parents? This is where people get nervous. Cliff, you're worried that if your children file, you lose them as dependents on your own return. But here's the good news. Filing a tax return and being a dependent are not mutually exclusive. As long as you provide more than half of their financial support, they are still your co-pilots on your tax return. Keeping a dependent on your tax return can still offer you the credit for other dependents, which is a nice $500 straight off your tax bill for each child. The rocket science error to avoid here is what I call the communications blackout. If they file and don't check the box that says someone can claim me as a dependent, and then you claim them, the IRS computers will see 2 ships trying to occupy the same coordinates. That triggers an automatic red flag faster than a fuel leak. Which brings us to stage 3, the flight sequence. Does the order of filing matter? Cliff, you asked if they should file first or should you. in the world of digital filing, the sequence of events is less about the date and more about the data. The most important thing is that the returns match. The order doesn't technically matter to the IRS's processing speed, but I recommend you, the lead flight director, review their returns before they hit submit. Ensure they have each checked the box someone can claim you as a dependent. If one of them files first and gets it wrong, your return will be rejected when you try to e-file. And then we're looking at a paper filing nightmare that moves at the speed of a 1960s lunar rover. Remember, Cliff, your children starting to earn their own money isn't a complication. It's a successful stage separation. You're still the commander of mission control. You're just helping them stabilize their own nascent orbits. Many thanks again, Cliff, for submitting this timely tax question. If you've got a retirement or a financial question that you'd like us to answer on the show, head over to retirementisn'trocketscience.com and click Ask a Question. Or even better, as Cliff did, you can skip to the front of the line by calling Mission Control at 704-234-6550 and record your own audio question. Now, let's broaden our perspective and take a close look at ARP-4, two galaxies that look like they're dancing, but are looks deceiving.
And Houston Discovery.
In Discovery Houston, we've got a good picture of Steve.
Welcome to the Retirement Big Picture part of our show. This is where we look up and look out to expand our appreciation and understanding of our amazing universe. A long time ago, in a galaxy not far, far away, I spent 2 decades studying the cosmos as an observational astrophysicist. So I've got a lot invested in this topic. Today, we're looking at a fascinating piece of celestial deception recently captured by the Hubble Space Telescope. It's a pair of galaxies known as ARP-4. Now, if you look at the photo coming out in Saturday's newsletter, you'll see what looks like a cozy cosmic duo. You have a large, somewhat ghostly blue spiral galaxy, and on its right shoulder sits a smaller, much brighter, and more energetic spiral. Now, from our perspective on Earth, they look like a pair of best friends traveling through the void together. But, as we often say in both astrophysics and retirement planning, looks can be deceiving. To understand what we're looking at, we have to go back to the 1960s. This object got its name from a catalog called the Atlas of Peculiar Galaxies, compiled by an astronomer named Dr. Halton Arp. Dr. Arp was a bit of a rebel in the astronomical community. While everyone else was looking at perfect galaxies, he was interested in the weird stuff, the galaxies that looked distorted, stretched, or peculiar. He believed that by studying the outliers, we could learn more about how galaxies evolve. ARP-4 was one of the very first entries in his catalog. Specifically, the larger, dimmer galaxy is classified as a low surface brightness galaxy. These are the stealth galaxies of our universe. They are incredibly faint and hard to detect because their stars are spread out so thinly. In our Hubble image, this galaxy, technically known as MCG-02-05-050, looks like a hazy blue cloud with fragmented arms. Here's where the rocket science gets interesting. That smaller, brighter neighbor that looks like it's touching the blue galaxy, it's actually nowhere near it. The large blue galaxy is about 65 million light years away from Earth. That sounds like a long way, but in cosmic terms, it's practically in our backyard. However, its little companion is actually 675 million light years away. That means there is a gap of 610 million light years between them. The only reason they look like a pair is because of our specific line of sight from Earth. It's a total visual coincidence. Because the smaller one is so much further away but still appears bright, it's likely a much larger, more massive galaxy than the one in the foreground. It's just like holding your thumb up to cover the moon. Your thumb isn't bigger than the moon, it's just much, much closer. If you wanted to point a telescope towards this odd couple, you need to look towards the constellation Cetus, also known as the Whale. Cetus is one of the largest constellations in the sky and is located in a region often called the Sea, because it's surrounded by other water-related constellations like Aquarius, the water bearer, and Pisces, the fish. Can you see this from the U.S.? Absolutely. Cetus is an equatorial constellation, meaning it's visible from most of the United States, especially in the autumn and in winter months. Now, is the actual galaxies themselves visible to amateurs? Here's the catch. While you can easily find the stars of Cetus with a standard pair of binoculars, seeing ARP4 itself is a challenge. Because the primary galaxy has such low surface brightness, it's nearly invisible to most backyard telescopes. You'll really need dark skies and the massive mirrors of a professional ground-based observatory, or even better, a space telescope, to see the detail. While this specific picture of the week came from our old friend Hubble, many people ask if James Webb Space Telescope has taken a look. Webb has been busy lately revisiting many of the objects in Dr. ARP's catalog. While Hubble sees primarily visible light, which is the same way our eyes work, of course, Webb looks in the infrared. Now, Webb actually hasn't imaged ARP4 yet, but as it's imaging galaxies like this, Webb can peer right through the cosmic dust that masks star formation. So if Webb were to focus on the distant companion in ARP4, it would likely see a baby boom of stars hidden inside the bright spiral arms. It reminds us that there's always a deeper layer of data if you have the right tools to look for it. So why are we talking about 600 million light-year galaxy gaps on a retirement podcast? Because in my second career as a financial planner, I see ARP4 scenarios all the time. A client might look at two different investment accounts and think they're basically the same. They're both growing, they're both in my portfolio. But when we apply the mission control lens, we realize that one of these assets is close, it's liquid, it's low risk, and it's ready to create the funding for your retirement paycheck. The other asset may be far. It's a long-term growth engine that you shouldn't touch for many, many years. If you mistake a far asset for a near asset, just because they look the same on a one-page statement, your financial trajectory could get pulled out of orbit. You need to measure the actual distance between where you are and what your goals are. Just like ARP4, your retirement plan is a collection of different moving parts. Some are faint and require careful monitoring. Others are bright and energetic. The key is knowing which is which so you don't fall into a visual coincidence that could cost you your peace of mind. You'll find the Hubble Space Telescope image of ARP4 in this week's newsletter called The Launch. Again, you can sign up for it at retirementisn'trocketscience.com.
Welcome home, Columbia. Beautiful, beautiful.
So I have to take it up in the hangar, Joe?
We're going to dust it off first.
We've spent today studying the two-body problem of coordinating retirement with your partner and designing a 5-talk mission plan to smooth all this out. Now it's time to open the hatch. This is your spacewalk. You are stepping out of your routine and into the light to turn today's insights into a successful mission. This isn't just a stroll. This is where the work gets done. To move from theory to results, here's your mission objectives. Number 1, schedule conversation 1 with your spouse. This week, spend 30 minutes sharing what your ordinary, ideal Tuesday looks like. No talk about bank balances or portfolio returns. Just focus on lifestyle. Number 2, define your fun money number. Agree on a monthly amount that each spouse can spend with total autonomy to eliminate small daily frictions. And number 3, consolidate the scoreboard. Create a simple one-page summary of all assets so both partners are operating from the same set of facts. Use my free 32-point checklist to make sure you've covered the most important planning issues on the verge of your retirement. Again, we'll have a link to that in our newsletter this week, or you can go directly to retirementisn'trocketscience.com/13 for episode 13. I challenge you to take just one idea from today's show and put it into practice this week to make your retirement even better. Remember, you've done the hard work of saving. Now let's do the smart work of planning. Until next time, keep your eyes on the horizon. Enjoy the adventure. You are go for retirement.
Mission complete, Houston. After serving the world for over 30 years, the space shuttle's earned its place in history and it's come to a final stop.
We copy your will stop, and we'll take this opportunity to congratulate you, Atlantis, as well as the thousands of passionate individuals across this great spacefaring nation.
We thank the National Aeronautics and Space Administration for providing the radio communications between the Space Shuttle astronauts and the flight controllers. This show is for informational and entertainment purposes only. It is not specific tax, legal, or investment advice. Before considering acting on anything you hear in this show, first consult your own tax, legal, or financial advisor.